getting incumbents out is difficult, you know, and for Democratic Party, the lesson should be find new candidates, find populist candidates who are proponents of democracy, of populist candidates who understand the working class. One of the things, albeit superficially, that Donald Trump has been able to do is to make himself seem closer to his supporters by his more colloquial use of English, loose English, whatever you want to call it. He connects with them because he becomes ordinary to the common man's eyes, just like a common man or woman would see themselves. And that is populism on a very Machiavellian level, because what he's doing is using populism to swindle these people out of millions. So much so that Herschel Walker's campaign is complaining that super PACs that went out asking for money for Herschel Walker's campaign took a majority of the money that came on in the name of Herschel Walker. So, and one of those PACs is Donald Trump's Save America PAC. So he is using the populism model to swindle people. What Democrats need to do, and what John Fetterman's election taught us, is that democratic populism, excuse me, and on a more progressive, socially progressive way of looking at it, Bernie Sanders' version of populism, of progressive economic populism, is the direction that the masses want to go. You know, I always say that I'm a Bernie Democrat who voted for Joe Biden after Bernie Sanders said he was going to as well. Hell, I even ran to be a Bernie delegate for the Democrats abroad slate of delegates for the nomination. Now, but I am today staunchly behind Joe Biden because of what he has accomplished, because of how humble he is and how he approaches, and because of how effective he has been. The most legislatively effective president since FDR, who got 80% of his legislative agenda accomplished in 2 years' time. So it gives the GOP Congress or the GOP House an opportunity to now show if they can work together with a very vocal and what will be a very active minority of the Democratic House caucus, but also a Democratic Senate and a Democratic president. If they throw out obstructionist impeachment procedures and investigations and double down on the nasty politics, the Trumpist MAGA politics that Donald Trump and many of his MAGA allies have pushed into the national scene, then they will self-immolate. They will burn themselves to the ground. The GOP will, because the message from the election is resoundingly that we want civility in politics. We don't want MAGA craziness. We don't want people doubting our election process. We don't want people doubting our courts and the rule of law. When there is no showing whatsoever, let alone sufficient showing, that there is fraud in the election cycle, or there is some sort of bad faith act happening in our elections, other than by the people who deny, domestic people who deny elections, and foreign adversaries who continue to interfere in our elections. Lately, now the latest one being the United Arab Emirates spent like over $150 million on disrupting or disinforming people about our election. So add them to the queue. Authoritarian regimes are all up and full swing into attacking the soundness and the foundations of American democracy and free speech. And I mean autocratic ideologies coming both from governmental entities and authoritarian uh, oligarchs all around the world who are influencing and manipulating speech and discourse and getting in the way of the truth getting to the people. But you can't really do that. They are trying to shield the world from information in the information age. Fascism and the disinformation, you can see through it. And the American people have said that they have seen through it. They're not ready to let go of conservatism. They're not comfortable letting go of incumbents, even if they denied in elections. But they are definitely ready to send the message that we are done with cantankerous politics. So, another thing, the rebuke of Trumpism goes all the way, started with Doug Mastriano and Mehmet Oz, and goes all the way to Kerry Lake and Blake Masters and I think Laxalt or whoever was in Nevada, or those Western states. I don't know why I'm saying here is West, here is, I don't know. Anyway, so it is a resounding rebuke of Trumpism. And what the other thing is, money isn't everything. It had an influence, it played a big role. But if money were taken out, outside money, PAC money, dark money was taken out today, which, by the way, outspent candidate money, and I mean both for Democrats and GOP put together, outspent it 60% to 40%. If that money was taken out, then elections wouldn't be influenced by special interest groups. And elections must not be controlled by shadow special interest groups fueled by left or right leaning entities. It's just not right. It should be people funded. It should be candidate funded. And Citizens United is by far the worst thing that has ever happened in modern political legal history. Because I say this again, Dobbs would not have happened if Citizens United didn't happen. Today, I will even go as far as to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene wouldn't be in office if Citizens United didn't happen. She's one of the biggest recipients of PAC money, dark PAC money. She also happened to be represented by the same lawyer who gave us Citizens United in her disqualification hearings in Georgia. For a casual observer who's a little obsessive and observes everything every day and monitors and tracks, it's open and clear as day the influence that dark money has on corrupting politics on a fundamental level, and going as far as to handing it to people who don't believe in the rule of law. It's an era of Roy Cohn, legal work and political spinning, or alternative facts, as Kellyanne Conway would like to say. And Americans have said, no, thanks. We don't want that. And, I feel that Americans have said that politely this time around. And if the House majority GOP does not take that hint, that they're going to lose in 2024. Because there's no way for them to stop the legislation that have been passed. There's no way for them, and they're not going to, because money is coming to their districts and they're taking credit for it. But they can make things difficult for President Biden. They can be ugly and cantankerous and nasty like they have been the last 2 years. Because they're going to have to make a choice now. Are they going to keep on playing to Donald Trump's tune? Is there going to be unified Republican support behind Donald Trump's candidacy as he announced? Because whether there is or not, Donald Trump will be indicted for several felonies any day now. And I've said many times, Donald Trump announced 2 years before the presidential election that he was running for election as a way to prime his flock. So when DOJ indicts him, he will say that he was indicted because he announced his candidacy. Nothing is further from the truth, but his radicalized flock will believe it. And any anarchist and seditious organizations like the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys and Three Percenters and any other new extremist organizations coming out, and chaos agents and suicide guerrilla fighters of MAGA like David DePape, these people will get the message, they will mobilize, and they will cause violence all around the country, here and there. They're not going to let people stay in peace. They're going to keep everything on edge. They're going to precipitate the sense of urgency that people have of safety. They will disinform people into what is happening with inflation that is global. It's 7.7% in the United States. It's 11.1% in the United Kingdom. It's 10% in India. It is over 8% in Germany. But somehow that propaganda had an impact. And a message to Democrats is get more youth to turn out. Be more moderate in how you seek progress. Because you can say you are a progressive and you can try to push through something. And more often than not in Washington, D.C., somebody who is persistent over a longer period of time and consistent and resistant to the nastiness by way of just sheer determination and humility, like President Joe Biden, gets things done. And he doesn't have to say it to you, he proved it to you. But that doesn't mean that Joe Biden isn't also extremely progressive. And in his way, from where he started, he's extremely progressive. He will, and I believe it is disrespectful for anybody to say and question whether Joe Biden should run for re-election or not. Anybody with that record, anybody with how much he got done accomplished, despite having so much going on, despite having so much resistance, despite having resistance from the party itself, within the party, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, he got things done. So have some respect. And if he says tomorrow, no, I'm not running, great. Whoever he endorses, I am going to be voting for that person, whoever that is. Because he is now my president. He has proven his mettle. And his way of doing politics saved Congress from turning red this election. A lot will be said about voter turnout and youth vote, and I've had my say about that. And we will have to see what happens with a GOP majority in the House.